What things did you do as a kid that you now realize is extremely weird? 8 rose petals. My grandfather told me they are edible. I still eat one when I go visit his grave. Edit. Thanks for my first award, kind stranger. I did not think this would resonate with so many people, and it's great to see all the different cuisine and recipe suggestions. There were spiders and mice in my room, which totally freaked me out, so every night before I went to sleep I'd whisper a report of what the weather was outside to encourage them to go outside rather than stay inside and bite me in my sleep. Purple was my favorite color, but I didn't like the word, so I called it Murderlop. Found out that the air had germs in it and tried not to breathe too much. I used to eat ants. I didn't even like the taste, and I kept doing it. I used to host imaginary science shows where I would get questions from viewers that I had to answer. I don't remember a lot of the questions from my fake audience, but I remember trying to explain that glass actually could let air through, and that was the explanation to how we didn't suffocate when all the doors and windows were shut. Young me did not know a whole lot about ventilation. Edit. I also remembered something else now. My mom worked as a nurse, and she sometimes let me take syringes home with me, both with and without needles. Don't really know how I feel about that nowadays, though. I sometimes took a bit of everything from our bathroom. Shower gels, shampoo, whatever fluid I could get my hands on basically, and I'd filled a mixture of the shit and put into a syringe. I then sneaked around the apartment and chose my victim, a poor plant of some kind. I injected a small dose of the magical elixir into the poor plant. Super happy this didn't develop some sort of mental disorder for me later. I used to have science experiments in the bathroom sink, meaning I'd go to the bathroom and lock the door. Once in, I'd make sure the sink drain was shut and then proceed to add every cleaner / chemical / shampoo etc under the sink to the sink in hopes of a reaction. Never got one, but it also never stopped me from trying. In hindsight, I probably could have killed myself if I had mixed the wrong stuff. I obviously didn't. I used to steal things from my sister when she was mean to me and then hide them by sewing them into her stuffed animals. She found out a few months ago and was really freaked out. When I was around 4 to 5 years old, I remember I used to sneak downstairs very early in the morning and search for any cups with that 1/2 of cold sweet sugary coffee in and drink them before anyone got up. Guess I may have been the youngest caffeine addict in Britain. Edit. Back in the day my parents drank camp coffee. I don't know if this is available outside of the UK, but it's essentially a thick coffee syrup which you use with hot water and milk. I loved it. So much better than instant. Double edit. The hazards of doing this were higher than you might think. Both my parents were heavy smokers, so there was a high probability of there being a dog end cigarette butt dropped in a cup somewhere. I wasn't that thirsty. I used to eat tissues as a kid. My mum found out one day and yelled at me to stop, as any sane parent would do, so I started eating them in secret, sneaking away with the tissue box to another room to eat a tissue or two, until one day, when I was about 5 years old, I had to go to the hospital. I had no idea what was going on. All I knew was that I had trouble breathing through my nose. Before my operation, I was in the hospital and I overheard one of the nurses say that they just needed to remove the excess tissue in my nose. Naturally, I thought that the tissues I had eaten had started getting clogged up in my nose, and I never ate a tissue again. I made the realization at 14 that it was muscle tissue in my nose and not the actual tissues I was eating. Edit. I'm glad to learn that I'm not alone with my strange habit. Also wanted to add that I saw some people mention getting tissue stuck in their ears, and I had a close call in primary school when I rolled a piece of paper into a really small ball and put it into my ear. If you haven't realized, I wasn't the brightest child. Had to go to the medical bay to get it taken out with tweezers. A few years ago, I was visiting my aunt and uncle, and they had some old film from the 80s of my extended family on a camping trip. There was a full playset there, including a trampoline, and my mother was filming my cousins and I playing. I'm not sure why my aunt and uncle had the tape instead of my mother, but whatever. I was about 3 at the time, and my mother panned the camera away from my cousins playing on a swing set towards me on the trampoline. Except I was lying face down on the trampoline, full on thrusting my hips into it as hard as I could. Now, I don't specifically remember doing that, but I have a pretty good idea of how my little mind worked at the time. I'm certain that I was just trying to see if I could build up enough force to lift myself off the trampoline mat or flip myself over. Still, not exactly the best thing to be watching with your aunt and uncle, who threatened to save it and show at my wedding. Jokes on them. I pocketed the tape when they weren't looking. Not me, but my partner used to keep kiwis, the fruits, as pets. He would name them and take care of them until his mom took them to blend into a smoothie. And Ash X200B. That was a rude awakening for him. I used to waste a shit ton of water by turning on the shower and lay on the floor next to it with a towel over my body and fall asleep with a tiny bit of water splashing on my face. I used to imagine I was in a cave and it was raining outside for some reason. Are good times. I, a girl, used to sit back to front on the toilet to pee. My reasoning was that way it sounded like my dad peeing, and then the monsters wouldn't try to grab me. Childhood anxiety is wild. I didn't know that people could see my eyes move and used to have my head in one direction and look with my eyes somewhere else. It wasn't before a girl saw me looking at her and said I figured that out. I was 7 or 8 years old and my mind was blown. My eyes move. When I was in elementary school I would use one hand to cover my butt when I showered because I was afraid that a monster would warp through the bathroom wall and attack my butthole. Several friends and myself had a fascination with writing in code. We had little pocket notebooks full of codes and deciphering instructions, also in code, and would write volumes of notes between us in code. Notebooks got confiscated by a teacher. We wouldn't tell her how to decode. She tried to get us in trouble. Parents thought it was hilarious. I'm almost 60 and I still have one of these notebooks around somewhere. In grade 1 we would sit in a group on the floor in front of the teacher while she read us stories. I would sit at the back of the group against the wall and pull my pants halfway down my bum. I liked feeling the cool ground/wall against my bare butt. When I was a wee lad I would wander about the house naked and pull back me foreskin to show visitors. I don't do that anymore though. I used to eat mechanical pencil lead. No idea how I got into that habit, but I think I enjoyed the crunchiness of it. Did it for a little while, but showed a classmate and she immediately went to the teacher who then called my mom who scolded me and told me to stop. Goodbye 0.7mm, you will be missed. Running any lollipop or sucker I ate under the faucet water after every lick because somehow it tasted better after being rinsed. Lol. Wearing velcro strap shoes so tight they'd probably cut off the circulation in my feet because I was worried my shoes would fall off. I used to eat butter straight out the tub too. My 5-year-old niece has started doing it. Maybe it's a family trait. I would only sit on the toilet with the shower cap on my head. I once took a dick pic on my dad's phone because I thought it would be funny. I was 7 and I didn't know what dick pics were or what pedophilia was or anything. My dad never brought it up. Update: I asked my dad about it. He doesn't remember it apparently. I would walk out the bathroom after taking a shit and spread my ass cheeks to whoever was in the living room and ask, "Is my butt clean?" One time it was the guy cleaning our carpet. Had an imaginary friend that I would make bets with that I was guaranteed to win. The prize being ludicrous amounts of imaginary money. "Hey Joe, I bet you $1,000,000,000,000 I can hold my breath for 3 seconds." God, I was rich back then. Saying some gibberish all the time and thinking that it is probably meaningful in some languages. I felt smart as hell. Used to piss in bottles, like outside, where, you know, I could have just pissed anywhere. I once got busted for breaking a pane of plastic in a neighbor's shed because I left my distinctive calling card at the scene. I piss in urinals and toilets now. I only piss in bottles when robbing the National Mint. For much of 2nd grade, for some reason, my parents let me pack my own lunch. I had 2 sandwiches of choice. One was what I called a triple butter sandwich, peanut butter, apple butter, and butter. A little strange, but okay. The other was a lettuce sandwich. White bread, mayo, and a few leaves of iceberg lettuce. I have no idea how they let me eat that for most of a full school year. Edit. Jesus Christ, this got a lot more replies than I thought it would. I have no regrets about the triple butter sandwich. Apple butter, if you've never had it, is pretty delicious, and I'm relatively sure I put butter in there just because it made sense, because they were all butter, right? But it wasn't bad. Apple butter, to answer the frequent question, is sort of like an apple jam. Basically imagine the process for making applesauce, but you cook it down longer, and it gets all caramelized and concentrated. It's great. It's more letting your kid make a sandwich from a little bit of lettuce that I question. I appreciate a lot of people saying it was good parenting because they were making sure I had something I'd eat, but you're being charitable. It was more that they weren't great parents and probably didn't pay attention. I wasn't a fussy kid at all. Unless you tried feeding me asparagus, I'd eat pretty much anything. And to the concerned Redditor who reached out to Reddit about me, that's kind of hilarious.